Hello everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Computer Applications Online at Ozarka College. In this Part 2 video for Access Module 1, I'm going to take you through pages AC1-24 through the end of the module, which is page 1-39. So in Part 1 of the video, I showed you how to create the blank database and name it and save it on your computer, and I also showed you how to create the first table in the database, which was the owners table. Alright, so at this point, if you haven't worked through the first part of the module through page 1-24, you'll need to go ahead and do that first before going through the steps that I'm going to show you in this video. So at this point we have the owners table in the CMF Vets database that we created in the last video. And in this particular part of the video, like I said, I'm going to take you through the last part of the module where we're going to create the second table, which is going to be called the patients table, and we're going to import some other tables into the database from a separate database. I'll show you how to use the get external data feature of Access to do that, and then we're going to create a query and a form and a simple report. Alright, so let's kind of get started here. So on page AC1-24, we need to create the second table by clicking the Create tab up on the ribbon. Alright, and that'll take you to all the options that we have of things that we can create in the database. And what we want to do is in the Tables group over here on the left hand side, we're going to click on Table Design. Alright, and that'll create a second table for us, a blank table in Design View. Alright, so in Design View, what we'll need to do now is look at the picture there on page 1-24, figure 1-30. It shows us all of the data that we need to type in to create the structure for this patients table. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is in that first field name box up here, we're going to type in patient ID as the first field name in the table. Alright, then we're going to press tab, make sure short text is selected as the data type. That is the default data type for new fields in a table, so you shouldn't have to change that. Alright, then you're going to go down to the second row where we're going to type in the second field name, which is patient name. And actually, we want to make patient ID the primary key field for the table. So we're going to need to click back up here on patient ID and click the primary key button. Okay? Because we want to make patient ID, which is the first field in the table, our primary key field. Alright? So you're just going to click on patient ID up here that we typed in just a minute ago, and click on the primary key button right up here on the ribbon. Alright, and it'll just add a little key symbol to the left of the patient ID field. Alright, so we've got that, and then we just need to keep typing the remaining field names as you see there in figure 1-30. So the next one is animal type. That's going to be our third field, and then press tab, make sure short text is selected as the data type. And also, we're not changing any of the field sizes for any of these particular fields in this table. So we're just using the default field size, which is 255. Alright, And then the fourth field name is breed. So we're going to type that into that fourth row there of the design view window, and then press tab. Make sure short text is specified as the data type. Then we're going to go to that fifth row and type in the last field name, which is owner ID, and then press tab. Alright, and then just check all of your go ahead and check all of your field names and data types and make sure they're correct using the pictures there on page 1-24 in your book. Alright, once you have all that done, you're going to click the Save button up here on the Quick Access toolbar, and it'll open up the Save As dialog box for the table, and you're going to type in Patients as the name of the table. Okay? Just type in Patients into the text box, and then click OK. Alright, so we've done the first step in creating a table, which is creating the table structure, or it's also called defining the fields. And now we're ready to actually populate the patient's table. In other words, enter the records into the fields. Alright, so to do this, we're going to click the View button on the left side of the Table Tools Design tab up on the ribbon, and that'll switch us over, or toggle us over to the datasheet view of the table. And this is what we're going to use, this datasheet view is what we're going to use to enter the patient data, which is shown on figure 1-32 on the very bottom of page AC 1-25 in your book. So you're just going to use that figure there at the bottom of the page and type in the information into each field for each record of the patient's table. So first patient ID is C-1. And then remember, you can use tab to move from one column to the next to enter the data for each record. Alright, and then pause is the patient's name there. Animal type is feline. The breed is calico. Owner ID is a capital O-2. Alright, then we're going to press tab to move down to the second record, or the second row of the data sheet. And then we're going to type in the information that's shown in that second row there in figure 1-32, which is C-2 and Ranger. And this animal is a canine, and the breed is Labrador. And the owner ID is capital O-1. Then we're going to press tab and enter the last record, which is F-1, Fluffy, Feline, Tabby, and the owner ID is capital O-1. Alright, so once we have all three records typed into the patient's table, we're now going to click the Close button for the table to close out of the table. Remember, as you enter each record and you're pressing tab at the end of each row of the data sheet, as you're entering the records for the table, it automatically saves each record as you go. So the only time you're going to need to make or to save a table that you've already created and saved is when you change the structure of the table. Alright, which we're about to do in just a minute. So just like we did in the first table, we're going to now on page 1-26, we're going to set each one of the column widths in the table to best fit by double clicking on the right boundary of each column heading. Alright, so what we're going to need to do is open up the patient's table. Alright, and you can do this a couple different ways. You can either double click on the table that you want to open, in this case the patient's table. That's the method I like to use because it's just easy. Or you can right click on the patient's table and then click on open. So either way you want to do that, open up the patient's table. And what we're going to do is double click the right boundary of each one of the column headings, just like we did in the first table. And what that does is that just widens out each of the columns, column widths, to fit the widest entry in the column, so that there's no data that's hidden in the columns of the table. Alright, once you've done that, since we've now changed the structure of the table by changing the column widths, we're going to need to click the Save button up on the Quick Access toolbar to save the changes. Alright, and then we're going to click the Close button for the table. Alright, so now we've got two tables in our database. We've got the owners table and the patients table. Alright, on the bottom of page 1-26, it's going to have us import some tables from another database. And this is important to be able to do, to know how to do, because a lot of times you'll have some employees working on one database with certain tables, and then another group of workers that are working on another database, and in some cases you'll need to move some of those tables or copy some of those tables from one database into another. Alright, and that's what we're going to learn how to do here on the bottom of page 1-26. So first thing we're going to need to do is make sure that we have the data file saved on our computer somewhere. So what you're going to need to do is go to MyOzarka, go to this course, obviously, go to the activities page, and under week 11 click on Access Module 1 Assignment 1. Alright, and then you're going to need to find under additional resources at the bottom of the page here, you're going to need to find the data file called CMF Vets Extra Tables. And you're going to need to basically right click on that link, click Save Link As, and then type in CMF Vets Extra Tables in the file name box, and then navigate in the upper pane to where you want to save your data file. It doesn't really matter where you save it, as long as it's a place where you're going to be able to find it in just a minute when we get ready to import it into our database. Alright, and I've already done that for mine, so like I said, it's basically the same method that we've used all semester to save data files. You're just going to basically save that data file to your computer. The one called CMF Vets Extra Tables. Alright, once you've done that, you're going to switch back to your database, to the CMF Vets database. Alright, and we're going to go through the steps on the bottom of page 1-26 under importing additional access database tables into an existing database. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to click the External Data tab up on the ribbon. Alright, and we're going to click on the New Data Source button on the left hand side. Right over here where it says New Data Source, you're going to click on that. And the source for us is a database, so we're going to point to From Database on the menu, and then on the other menu that opens up, you're going to click on Access, okay? Because it's an access database that is going to have all the tables that we need to import into this database. Alright, once you've done that, you'll see a Get External Data Access Database dialog box open, and at the top it's going to have a file name box and a Browse button. You're going to need to click the Browse button to the right of the file name box. Alright, and then basically you're going to navigate to that file, that data file that we saved from MyOzarka. Alright, and so you're going to navigate to that, and again, mine's going to be in a different location than yours. You're going to have to find whatever folder you saved that data file in. Alright, and so, and it's just called CMF Vets Extra Tables. So I'm going to click on that and click Open. Alright, and then it's going to show the path to that file on my computer in the file name box. Alright, and then make sure under the heading specify how and where you want to store the data in the current database, make sure that the first option, which is import tables, queries, forms, reports, macros, and modules into the current database, make sure that that's selected, that first option. Alright, and then you're going to click OK. Alright, and then it's going to open up the import objects dialog box, and it's going to list out the tables that are in that database that we're importing from. There should be one called appointments, one called treatment cost, and one called veterinarians. All right, and they're just going to be listed on the tables tab up here. All right, what you're going to do is click the select all button on the right hand side of the dialog box. It'll select all three of those tables, and then you're going to click OK. And then you'll see the last step of the Get External Data Access Database dialog box open up, where it asks you whether you want to save the import steps. We're going to not save the import steps, so just make sure the checkbox is not selected next to Save Import Steps, and then just click the Close button at the bottom of the dialog box. And now check over on your navigation pane over here on the left hand side of the screen, the left hand side of the Access window, and make sure that those other three tables appear. Remember, we already had the owners and the patients tables, but now we should also have one called appointments, one called treatment cost, and one called veterinarians. So make sure you have those other three tables. Alright, if you don't have those, then you'll need to go back and go through the import process again. Alright. Now it wants us to open the treatment cost table, so we're going to double click on the treatment cost table to open it up. Alright, and it just wants us to kind of look at it to verify that the data is in the table. Once you've verified that the data is in there, you're just going to click its close button to close out of that table. Alright, on page AC1-29, in addition to tables, and really tables are the most simple kind of object you can create in Access, but in addition to tables, you can also create other objects based on the tables that you've already created in the database. For example, you can create a query. A query is basically a question that answers questions that are relevant to you in the database. Alright, and that's what we're going to create next here. So on page AC1-29, we want to make sure the navigation pane is open. And of course, the shutter bar open close button right here is what opens and closes the navigation pane. So if it's not already open, you'll need to click the shutter bar open close button and make sure that you've opened the navigation pane so you can see all the objects that are part of our database. Alright, and what we're going to do is we're going to base this query on the owners table. So we're going to click on the owners table in the navigation pane, and then we're going to go up and click on the Create tab up on the ribbon. And in the Queries group, we're going to click on Query Wizard. Alright, so you're going to click on Query Wizard. It'll open up a new query dialog box, and it'll give us an option of 4 different types of wizards that we can choose from. We want to make sure Simple Query Wizard is selected, and then click OK. Alright, then it's going to give us a Microsoft Access security notice. Just click on Open when you get that notice, okay? And it'll go ahead and open up the Simple Query Wizard dialog box. And in this dialog box on page 1-30, we need to select the fields that we want to include in the query. Alright, so the first field that we want included is owner first name. Alright, so we're going to click owner first name, and then click the add field button, which is the little button in between the two boxes here that looks like a little right pointing arrow. Okay, and what that button does is it moves the field from the available fields column to the selected fields column. So again, you're going to click owner first name and then click the add field button. Okay, and it'll just add that field to the selected fields column. You're going to do the same thing for owner last name, owner street, owner city, owner state, and owner postal code. Okay. And then once you have all of those in the correct order there in the selected fields column, just double check them, make sure they're correct in the right order. All right. And once you have those correct in the right order, you're going to click on Next at the bottom of the dialog box. And then it's going to ask us to type in a title for the query. In this case, we want to use owner's query as the title, and that should already be there as the title since we use the owner's table as the basis for the query. What it does is it automatically uses the table name and then it just adds the word query. So you shouldn't have to change the title there. It should already say owner's query. Just verify it and then click the finish button at the bottom of the dialog box. And then what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and create that owner's query for us, and it's going to show the results in datasheet view. Alright, and just kind of verify on page 1-31 it shows you in the figure there at the top of the page what the datasheet should look like for the owner's query. Just verify it, make sure it's correct. And then once you verified it, go ahead and click the close button for the owner's query. Alright. On the bottom of page 1-31, it talks about another type of object that we can create and access based on a table that we've already created, and this is a form. A form is just a very, very simple type of object. It's similar to a table, except that instead of showing several records at one time, like a table does, it shows just one record at a time. So it basically shows one record on each screen and you can scroll through the form and basically view one record at a time. Some people like to use form view to actually edit records because you can make sure that you're editing the correct record. Alright, so to create the form based on the owner's table, we're going to make sure that the owner's table is selected in the navigation pane. And then we're going to click Create up on the ribbon to move to the Create tab sheet. And then we're going to click the Form button very simply. Okay, the form is very, very easy to create. You just basically click on the Form button. Of course, you have to first select the table that you want to create the form based on. And then you basically just click the Form button on the Create tab and it creates the form for you. Alright, and you'll notice it basically shows just one record at a time. To navigate to the various records in the form, you just basically use the navigation buttons down here at the bottom, the little arrows. Okay, so you can click the next record button there if you want to, just to move to record 2. Once we've done that, we can click the Save button up on the Quick Access toolbar, and it's going to ask us for a name for this form, and it just wants us to name this Owner's Form. So it already has the word Owners there because of the name of the table, and so now we just need to click to the right of Owners there in the form name box and type in the word Form. So now it should read Owner's Form as the name of the form. Then you're going to click OK in the Save As dialog box and then close the form. Alright, and now you'll see over here in the navigation pane, in addition to the 5 tables we already have, we also have the query that we just created under the Queries category, and then we have the form that we just created. Alright, on page 1-34, the last object that we're going to create in this CMF Vets database is the report. All right, and a report is basically like a professional looking table that we can create using data in our database. Anytime you want to use data from a database and present it in a meeting or online, normally you would create a report to that way you can specify exactly what kind of data is important in that particular meeting, and you can just print out just that data that's important. And also a report will allow you to format the data where it makes it easier to read, easier to understand. All right, and it's mostly used in decision making. All right, so what we're going to do is on page 1-34, we're going to make sure the owner's table is selected in the navigation pane because we want to create the report based on the owner's table. And then we're going to click the Create tab just like we did to create all the other objects. And since this is a report we're creating, we're going to look in the Reports group on the Create tab, and we're going to click on Report Wizard. All right, and that Report Wizard dialog box will open. And first thing it's going to do is ask us what fields that we want included in the report. All right, and we're going to basically select these fields basically the same way that we did for the query. All right, we're going to, you notice there's an available fields column here and a selected fields column. So you're going to, one by one, click on the field names that we want included in the report and then click the Add Field button. So the first one that we want is owner first name. So we're going to click on owner first name and then click on the Add Field button. And the next one that we want is owner last name. So we're going to click on that and click on the Add Field button for it too. And then we also want owner street address. So we're going to click on that and click on the Add Field button. And we want owner city. So we're going to add that to the selected fields column. And we also want owner state. So we're going to add that to the selected fields column. So look at the 5 fields that you have in the selected fields column. Make sure they're in, that you have the correct fields in the selected fields column. Also make sure they're in the correct order. Should be owner first name, then owner last name, then owner street address, owner city, and owner state. All right. Once you make sure that those are all there and in the right order, you're going to click on the next button. And here it's going to ask us if we want to have any grouping in our report. And in this case, we're not going to specify any grouping. So we're going to just click the next button. Then it's going to ask us what kind of sort order do we want for the records in our report. Actually, wait. Actually, we need to go back. Go ahead and click the back button. And we actually do, on step 4 on page 1-35, it does want us to group the owners, group the report by owner state. So we're going to click on owner state here in the grouping levels. And we're going to click the Add Field button. Then we're going to click the Next button. And that's where it asks us what kind of sort order that we want. We're not going to do any sorting in our case, so we're going to click the Next button. Alright, then where it asks us what kind of layout that we want for the report, we're going to make sure that the stepped layout is selected under Layout, and that portrait orientation is selected in the Orientation section. and make sure that down here where it says adjust the field width so that all fields fit on a page, just make sure that that box is selected or checked. Okay, just leave that checked and then click next. And then this last step, it's going to ask us to name the report, and it wants us to name this owner's report. So it already has the word owners there in the default name for the report. So all we need to do is click to the right of the word owners, press space, and then type in the word report. Alright, and then we're going to click the finish button, and it's going to show us the results of the report. Alright, and you'll notice it's kind of step down grouped by owner state. Alright, and once we have that done, we're going to close the report. Alright, and at this point, this is the end of the module here. The last few pages just kind of give you some additional information on things like database properties and special database operations. You can just kind of read through that. It also talks a little bit about compacting and repairing the database. You can just kind of read through some of that. Let me know if you have questions about it. Alright, so before you actually upload this database into Miles Arca, you'll need to make sure that you have all 5 tables and if those are correct. So you'll need to open up each one and compare them to what they're supposed to look like. And by the way, I do have under the resources heading on the assignment page in Miles Arca, I have a document there that shows pictures of what each object should look like. Alright, so you'll want to use that as the basis for checking all of your objects in the database. Alright, and so you'll just go through and check all these for accuracy. All the tables, the query, the form, and the report. Once you make sure all those are correct, and when you're checking the tables, don't just check the field name, but also check the data type, any caption that needed to be added maybe to that particular field, or description. So check everything, the field size. Make sure that you've checked everything, especially on the structure of the table. And then also verify that you have all the correct data. In other words, all the correct records in the table structure. Alright, and then once you've made sure you've got all that stuff correct, then go ahead and upload it into Miles Arca. Alright, so that concludes this Access Module 1 demonstration. Just let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.